So today we're joined by Michael Daw, who is starring in the new pilot shooting in Pensacola very soon, Scam County. Michael Daw is an actor and graphic designer in Pensacola. You like to go by Daw, right? You want me to call you Daw?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. So how are you doing?
Good. How about you?
Pretty good. So you have Scam County up for Kickstarter right now, correct?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what Scam County is about?
Yeah, so it's a 30-minute sitcom pilot about three friends who decide to become con men.
Cool. And you're not the only one who's already been cast. There's more people in it, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, there's more people. The three main characters are played by Grant Tyson, Max Rowe, and myself.
Okay. And it's being made with basically your crew of Kitty Get a Job, right?
Yeah, Kitty Get a Job has jumped on. They're producing it, and those are the main guys that are doing crew for it.
So where is your Kickstarter at right now as far as funding?
We are at, I believe last time I checked, it was like 3,900 out of a $5,000 goal.
And you have what, 17 days left?
Yeah, something like that. A little bit over 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the build up? Can you take us through, the inception, the writing, where you got your influences from, that sort of thing?
Sure. So, this has been a long time in the making. I think the original idea came about 9 or so years ago with me, Grant Tyson, and our friend Aubrey Nichols. And we came up with this idea of just three friends who become con men. We thought that was pretty funny and that there was a lot to do with it. We were influenced, especially at that time, by shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Eastbound and Down, stuff like that. Breaking Bad also was a pretty big thing back then.
Yeah, I also, from what I read of it, got kind of a Trailer Park Boys vibe as well.
Sure, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We were definitely fans of Trailer Park Boys way back when.
So it's set in Pensacola, right?
Right.
So how does the city factor into the story as a whole, or the characters?
Uh, well, in a lot of ways. Pensacola is a character in the show. We just have a lot to work with here. We've got the beaches, which is what most people think of when they think of Pensacola, at least if they're not from here. So we have the beaches, and we have this like thriving downtown area, Palafox Street. We've got like East Hill and North Hill, which are kind of these nicer, more like hip areas for people to live. You've got the West Side, which is military base. You've got colleges. You drive 20 minutes and you're in the sticks in Cantonment. Like there's so much different stuff we can use with that.
Yeah, it's always been sort of strange to me because Pensacola almost feels like, depending upon what neighborhood you're in, you feel like you're in a different part of the States.
Yeah, no, you
You know?
do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
weird. It's like part military town, part college town, part party town, and then tourist beach
and
town.
and Pensacola is known for having quite a lot of con men in the past
Yeah.
and people of that of that nature. Actually, I have a little story to share. Is that after Hurricane Ivan, my parents owned a condo on Pensacola Beach, and all these contractors are coming out to help on Pensacola Beach with rebuilding and everything like that. So my parents let a contractor stay in their condo for free because they thought, oh, he's here, he's helping out the community. He only needs to be here for 2 weeks or something like that. Let's let him stay. Well, they see the contractor on the news a couple weeks later that he had come down to Pensacola, bought all these contracting deals, or got all this money to build up parts of the town, and ended up booking it. Ended up leaving town.
Uh,
Basically came in and scammed a bunch of people. My parents were watching the news, and they look at him. They go, "Hey, isn't that the guy that was staying in our place?"
That's insane. That's funny
Yeah.
though, because it's like kind of a shitty con. Like the good cons are when the people that you con don't know that they've even been conned.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's a lot of stuff, like, I mean, I would argue that Apple has a pretty good con going on, although they did get caught with throttling their older models so that you would go out and buy a new one. I
Oh
don't know if you
yeah,
heard about that. Yeah.
I didn't have to hear about it. It happens to my phone. Like every three
Yeah.
years, I have to go get a newer one because they do updates, and I'm sure that there's like forced obsolescence in there.
Oh yeah. And that happens on computers.
Yep, I just had to
Yeah.
replace my iMac.
Yeah. It's really, it's really funny like how much big companies can get away with as far as these blatant scams. And then, but the ones that people talk about are, some like low life, scamming people out of $20. And that's the one that people get pissed off about, but they don't even mind the fact that their phones are getting throttled.
Right, and that's a big like kind of point in the show. These three main characters, part of like what drives them into this is just seeing how fucked up and corrupt just the government, big business, all that shit is. I mean, the prison system, all of it is just like this huge scam. So it's like, well, everybody else is doing it. I mean, look at our fucking president. Why don't we just go ahead and do it?
Well, with the prison systems, they get incentivized to keep prisoners, and so there's more of an incentive to have prisoners,
Yeah, I went
which
to
is,
jail a few years ago for like a month, and it's where a lot of the inspiration from some of the jail stuff in the episode comes from. I was like, I'm in here for like the dumbest thing you can go to jail for. Nothing violent. Like I didn't hurt anybody. It's the stupidest thing. Surely, like it's gonna be overcrowded. They're gonna just let me out early. Nope. Found out while I was in there that it's even our jail, which isn't even a prison, just a county jail, is a privately funded jail. So those people who own the jail get paid a certain amount of money per inmate per day that they're there. So they're not trying to like let you out on good behavior. They're trying to keep you there and milk it.
yeah, there's a good movie that just came out. It's on Amazon Prime right now about the corruption of the jail system. And it's like a grindhouse action flick. It's called Brawl in Cell Block 99
Nice.
with Vince Vaughn. And
Nice.
yeah, and he plays this guy that he ends up saving these cops, but it was during a heist gone wrong, or it was during like a drug deal gone wrong. But these two guys he's with starts shooting at cops, and he saves the cops, but then because he was involved, he gets thrown in jail, and he starts to get pressured to basically get himself in like solitary confinement. But the deeper he goes into the prison system, the more corrupt it gets. And of course, the bloodier the action gets too. So
Nice.
it's a good watch. But I mean, I think stuff like this is starting to become more discussed in the mainstream.
Yeah.
You know, even though it wasn't a mainstream movie by any means. It's made by that guy who made Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell. I don't know if you saw that one.
No, I never saw that.
Yeah, really, really bloody Western movie with like cannibals and stuff. It's a kind of a trip. So Scam County is a dark comedy, and you have experience making these kind of comedic videos because you have been involved with Kitty Get a Job.
Right.
Yeah. How
So,
long has that gone on?
so I think they released their first video. It was like September of 2016. And at that time we were working on Reagan and the Bunny, and that's where I like kind of got to know Chris a little bit better, Chris Jadala, who started Kitty Get a Job, and he kind of told me about the meetings. And once they released that first video, I was like, okay, yeah, I've got to try to be a part of this because this is pretty awesome. So I hit him up, and he was like, yeah, we're filming this new sketch, and we'd like you to audition. So I came in and auditioned, and then just like kept coming to the meetings, and they never told me to stop. So that's been A little bit over a year now that I've been working with them.
Yeah, you were on their Christmas video last Christmas.
Yeah,
Were
that was
you on any
actually
before then?
before the Bop It Christmas one.
Yeah, the Bop It Christmas one, yeah.
No, I wasn't. We had actually filmed one before then, but it never wound up getting released.
Oh, okay.
But the Bop It one was actually the first one I was in and the first one that I wrote.
Oh,
So
okay.
so that was a neat one.
So, so what's it like writing a sketch? Because you guys write a sketch for each month, right?
Yeah.
And you release it. What's typically your release window?
We release at 4 p.m. on the first Friday of every month.
Okay. So what's the production like as far as getting an idea, taking it to production, editing? How long does it usually take to make one of these sketches?
Let's see. So a few months ago, we did every few months we have a meeting that's devoted to voting in the next two sketches that we're going to film. So everybody kind of brings in their own ideas. Sometimes it's just kind of a half-ass idea, and sometimes it's like a fully written sketch, and we all vote on the next two that we want to do. Yeah, most people write alone. Some people team up. I know we've teamed up on a few before. But yeah, it's kind of different for everyone. For some of the ones that I've written, you know, the Bop It sketch was an idea that Grant and I had years ago for a sketch that we just never did anything with. And then around that Christmas time, I was like, hey, I'm going to try to write something and submit it, and wrote it. I didn't even have like the full script. It was just kind of the idea, brought it in, it got voted in. And from there, we kind of had meetings devoted to punching it up, making sure it's the right length and there's something entertaining and funny about it. So yeah, usually it's actually a pretty quick turnaround. From voting in to the sketch like actually getting released is probably usually within 2 to 3 months.
So when you're looking at the production schedule of this, would you say it's 1 or 2 days in production, maybe one day of pre-production for
Yeah,
each of these sketches? Yeah.
yeah, that sounds about right. Some of them are multiple shoots. The Christmas sketch from this last year, for instance, was a 2 day shoot. A lot of times we try to knock it all out in one day and have gotten really good at hitting those goals, but sometimes it's just easier to, if the second location is too far off, then split it up into 2 days. But yeah, usually I don't think we've ever done more than 2 shoot days per sketch.
And as far as post-production goes, how long does it usually take to edit?
It can, sometimes it's quick. The Christmas sketch from this last year, we finished shooting it like the first or second weekend in December, and then released it a couple weeks later. So it was a couple 1 to 2 weeks in editing for that one. Some of them take a little bit longer. Sometimes, we're still working on it the week that we're supposed to release it.
Yeah, and I know that sometimes when I don't know how you guys shoot your sketches, but I know that when there's a lot of improv on set, it can make editing a lot harder because you're having to choose between different lines, and you're almost having to rewrite the entire thing in post.
Yeah, we don't. That's why we try not to do too much improv. We'll do what Chris likes to call informed improv sometimes, where it's like you know what you're trying to get out of the scene. You know, kind of like the boxes you have to check off, but we sometimes will like play around with a couple lines, that sort of thing. But yeah, definitely going like full improv is just too hectic for what we're trying to do and editing
Yeah.
purposes.
Yeah, and then you get a Ghostbusters 2016 as a result, which is, or just any of that seems to be the popular thing with the mainstream comedy nowadays. Anyways, it's just to throw a bunch of funny words at the camera, but it usually doesn't yield good results.
No, and a lot of people think with shows like The Office and Parks and Recreation, stuff like that, they're like, this has to be improv. And it's like, no, just the writers and the actors are that good.
Yeah, Yeah, and they spent a lot of time making sure that everything they wrote down was funny,
Yeah.
and then working with the actors to kind of fine tune the delivery and the exact wording and everything. Because
Right.
good comedy really does come down to how you word things. Because you can say just some kind of bland statement, but if you word it a little bit differently, it can be funny.
Right.
What's the difference you would say between writing a sketch for Kitty Get a Job versus writing the pilot script for Scam County?
Well, time is probably the biggest one. With a sketch, it could be anywhere from, I think our shortest one was 2.5 to 3 minutes, and then up to 7 or 8 minutes. I know the 1 year anniversary sketch, I think, was like 8 or 9 minutes. But even that is like the pilot, that we're shooting for a 30-minute pilot. There's just so much more that you have to account for. A sketch can be one quick scene between two people in one location. So you obviously can't do that with a pilot, otherwise it's not going to be very interesting. So that's one of the biggest ones. It's like you've seen what we can do with like 3 to 5 minutes. Like now let's see what we can do with 30.
Yeah, and also with writing a pilot, it's more about bringing a story together and kind of interweaving stories because as far as I know, your story of Scam County kind of interweaves a couple different stories that are going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And a sketch is kind of like it's one story or it can be one joke, but it's a bit more dense, I guess more character heavy on
Yeah.
a pilot, and that does change how you write things.
Yeah, definitely.
So with Scam County, what's your goal in making it? So say that you get it made. What are your plans after that?
We want to do the festival circuit with it. A lot of film festivals have pilot categories and sitcom categories, television stuff, and there are actually television film festivals now. There's a couple pretty big ones. So that's kind of the goal. That's usually the best way to get something that you've made in front of the right people. So we're going to go that route at first and exhaust any other connections we might have after. The ultimate goal would be to have it made have it go to series and be on TV or a streaming service.
Yeah, I know that Sundance just introduced a indie, like an indie series lineup. South by Southwest has been doing TV pilots for a long time. It's becoming more of a thing because it's, for independent filmmakers, it's much easier to make a pilot than it is to make a feature. And a show, a series is almost always a lot more profitable anyways than feature films are.
Right. Even like Slam Dance, which is just a short film festival, they don't have a pilot category, but even on their website, they're like, we accept short or pilots or TV episodes as a short film. It's just kind of in the same category.
Slam Dance does features, but your feature has to be less than $1 million. Most of the features are around. I've been to Slam Dance a few times. That's an interesting festival. I don't know if you know the logistics of that festival.
No, not a lot. I even just mixed up my information there. Yeah, they do features, but I guess what I was saying was the short.
Oh yeah, they don't do pilots, but you can have a pilot there because it can qualify as a short. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Slam Dance is interesting because it takes place across the street from Sundance.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
And it's all in a hotel. It's in I'm forgetting what the hotel is called. It's like Blue Mountain or something. It has a kind of crappy Mexican restaurant attached to it.
Nice.
But all the screenings are in like those hotel conference rooms. And so none of the, like, it's always it's a weird experience because you go and you see a movie at the Egyptian Theater in Park City for Sundance, and it's like this lavish, sort of, it's not super lavish, but, it's pretty nice. You go across the street, see a Sundance movie, and you're sitting in like folding chairs in a conference room, and but I don't know if you know the story behind. Now, I don't know if this is 100% true. I think this is true, but it definitely is legend status right now. Is that Slam Dance was started by Matt Stone and Trey Parker, or was inspired by Matt Stone and Trey Parker, because they had a movie called Cannibal the Musical that they made back in 1996. I think it was 96. I could be wrong. But they didn't get into Sundance, so they rented a projector and they did like screenings in that hotel for people. They like were selling tickets or giving away tickets to see the screening of Cannibal the Musical in like that hotel. And it was like the next year that the guy that made it, like because of them, the guy decided to make Slam Dance. And it definitely does cater more towards indie audiences than Sundance does, because Sundance a lot of times caters more towards like low budget studio movies or movies that have budgets of like $3 million or something around there, which obviously like a real indie filmmaker isn't going to get that kind of money.
Right.
Like you got to have big money behind that. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, which won a couple of years ago, that was an $8 million movie. As much as I love the movie, I'm like, I don't know if that qualifies as indie, but whatever. The other good thing about the festival circuit isn't just getting your movie seen by the right people, but it's also meeting the right people. It's meeting a lot of other filmmakers.
Right.
And who can always help out or chip in to your next projects, or you can become part of their next projects. So you're asking for $5,000 to make Scam County on Kickstarter. Now, people who aren't familiar with film may see this as an exorbitant amount of money, but can you explain to us why it's actually like almost nothing to make, a pilot?
Yeah. So there's two sides to that coin, because $5,000 in the scope of production or film of any sort is nothing. But still, to me, like somebody who is pretty poor, like $5,000 is a lot of fucking money. Like, I don't think I've ever had that much saved up. So yeah, it's really not a lot compared to what studios put into pilots. But for us, it's kind of like what we need to make this happen and to make it good. $1,500, that's a big chunk of it, is going to editing right off the bat, and that's actually a super good deal. We have one of the best editors in town, Nick Gray, doing this for us, and he will not give you that price if you ask him. But the good thing about this group is we always kind of try to use as much trade as we can. We all do different stuff. I do design work. Chris obviously film stuff. So we worked out some trade stuff with him to get it down to, I think, under half of what it usually would have cost if you were to just call him and get a quote on a 30-minute pilot. So right off the bat, that's where $1,500, a big chunk of it's going to go. Looking at food, I mean, that's probably going to be close to another $1,500 when you're talking about a crew of that size with eight to 10 shoot dates. Some of those days will be long and you'll have to provide multiple meals. You can't have all these people working for free and not at least feed them. So that's like the two big things that we like have to get covered. On top of that, we have to have submission money for the film circuit. We have to have props and costume. I had a good bit saved just to throw into this, and almost all of what I had saved is just about gone just from props and costumes and feeding people for the couple of days that we've got together to shoot these teasers. So that money goes really quick when you're talking about $10 a person and you've got scenes with 3 main characters and 10 extras, not to mention crew, DP, director. So it definitely can get real expensive real quick. And then a little bit of that, probably the smallest amount of that budget, is going towards actually making the stuff that you get from funding the Kickstarter, the T-shirts, hat, posters, all that stuff. We have to be able to pay for it. So that's where all the money's going.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of hit on one of the points that you talked about. It is so important to feed your crew members, especially on these indie projects where they're not getting paid. You should always feed them. You know, when you're on a bigger project, you're probably going to be SAG, and you have to feed.
Yeah.
You have to feed people after 6 hours. You know, that's the union rules. But especially on these indie things, I've been on a few indie sets where they completely forget to buy food. And, you know, you're working 6, 7, 8 hours, sometimes longer, and you're not getting fed.
Yeah.
And you really it just makes you want to leave.
Yeah, especially when it's a passion project. Nobody's getting paid. Like, you got to feed people.
Yeah, it's so important. But I think that segues us pretty nicely into what has the Kickstarter campaign been like? I know you guys been making teasers and doing all sorts of photo shoots.
Just doing a Kickstarter is a huge undertaking. This is the second one that I've done. The first one was a couple years ago for a children's book for adults that I wrote and illustrated called A Very Krampus Christmas. And that one, I put a lot of work into it. I hit the goal. Wasn't a lot of money. I think the original goal was like $1,500, and I wound up getting a little bit over $2,000. So that definitely helped prepare me for this and scaling up. A lot of people start these Kickstarters or Indiegogo campaigns, and they don't put nearly enough work into it and can't figure out why nobody's giving them money. But like it has to look good. You have to have it designed in a way that's appealing, that people will want to read it. You have to have content. We can't just put a camera in front of us and be like, yeah, we want to make this pilot, and then just tell people. Like, you have to show them something. So with the Krampus book, I did 5 pages of it. I had the first 5 pages complete, ready to go when the Kickstarter launched. You have to do stuff leading up to it, otherwise nobody's ever going to see the Kickstarter. So we did promo photos for Scam County. We did. I designed a few graphics for it. We're doing the teasers, which we released Max's teaser the day we launched the Kickstarter. We're releasing my teaser this weekend, or I don't know when you're releasing this, but
I'll be uploading it tonight.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So this weekend we're releasing my teaser. Tomorrow we're going to film the third teaser. We got to get our editor to edit them. We got to get crew together to do that stuff, and you have to have a team of people that are constantly trying to push stuff through social media just to get people to your Kickstarter page to look at it.
Yeah, it's a lot more work than people think. People think it is, and which leads me to think that maybe it would be easier to just go the normal pitch route, or do like what Sam Raimi did with The Evil Dead. That it might be easier to just do normal pitches. Have you guys thought about pitching it to people with some money, or would you rather just leave it up to the community?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. We don't know anybody with money. So, like, if you could help us with that, that'd be sweet. Or anybody out there listening, that'd be great. I'd love to pitch it. I like going through the community, though, because it's people are giving us money that trust us, that have either like known us and have seen Chris's DP work, for example, or sketches from Kitty Get a Job, and that have seen that we can make something interesting, and that are trusting to do that, or trusting us to do that. Whether like we go through somebody who has money, people with money generally have opinions also, and a lot of them suck ass. So, we don't want to have to give up creative control before we can even make the pilot. It's one thing if we get the pilot done and a network or streaming service is interested in it, then you can talk changes. But just trying to get the funding for the pilot, I've seen a lot of projects that don't happen because the person providing the money and then the creative side can't see eye to eye.
Yeah, it's sadly something that's fairly common in this industry.
So we're just, we're not asking people with money for money. We're asking our friends who don't have a lot of money for money.
Yeah, but hey, you've almost got $4,000 as of right now.
Yeah,
So that's
we're
something.
really hoping that this next teaser will help us make it through that goal relatively quick. We have some ideas for some stretch goals. Hopefully that can involve making enough money to pay the cast and crew, which is always nice, even if it's not full SAG rate. Getting paid something is nice.
Yeah, or just getting paid for, gas to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Enough
So you're
to enough
not.
to cover everybody's gas and maybe their dinner that night, something like that.
This brings me to another point is that Pensacola generally isn't a filming town. When people look at the Southeast and they think of filming locations, they think New Orleans and Atlanta. Pensacola rarely comes to mind, but I think there is an insurgence of young filmmakers here, but there is the problem of not a lot of money going into film projects or art projects in general. What kind of changes would you want to see in the city to help with bringing filming productions in or bringing just culture in?
Well, Florida getting film incentives would be amazing. We don't even like have anyone. If you want to film somewhere in Pensacola, there's not even like a place you can go to get approval for that. That would be nice to have change. I think they tried something a couple years ago where they were just going to start charging you for filming anywhere, like you would get fined. Uh,
Yeah, that was such a bad move
Yeah, so
because
that's like the
yeah,
wrong way to go about it. That's not the type of like change we need. That's not going to make more people want to film here. Sure, like if people want to come in from LA and film here, charge them. Like make some money off of it. But like local filmmakers and stuff trying to charge people to go make a passion project, like that's bullshit.
well, I think what the law that they were thinking about entailing, what it entailed was that if you're using any kind of camera shooting on the street, you had to have a permit.
Yeah,
So it didn't even matter. Like you could be a real estate photographer and you would need a permit to shoot a house.
right.
If I remember correctly, that may be taken a little too far, but I remember it being something crazy like that.
Well, yeah, which is just the wrong way to go about it. We want more of that stuff here, not less. Like people don't
Yeah.
realize how much money is brought in from big production stuff. Like that can
And
bring a
yeah.
shit ton of money to your town, which is good for everybody. Why would you not want that?
Yeah, and a bunch of tourist money. I mean, people visit Seaside still, partially because the Truman Show was made there.
Yeah.
They still have, posters of the Truman Show up at the grocery store in Seaside.
Yeah, and
Like
it's
it's
all the surrounding states pretty much have film incentives of some sort. Alabama doesn't right now, correct?
I'm not sure. Alabama's is always up in the air. Sometimes they have pretty good incentives and sometimes they don't.
But
It
like
just varies. I
you
don't I haven't looked it up recently.
you mentioned New Orleans and Atlanta. I mean, Louisiana and Georgia both have great film incentives, and that's why so much shit is happening there.
Yeah, and we're caught in between the two. Pensacola is kind of like it's almost equidistant from New Orleans to Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's like 3.5 hours from New Orleans and it's about 4.5 hours from Atlanta. And yet we don't really see much of the film. But across the border in Mobile, there are quite a few film productions.
Yeah.
Because
All of them Nicolas Cage.
yeah, all of them Nicolas Cage or what's his name, Steven Seagal.
Oh yeah, does he do a lot there?
Oh man, like even his biggest movie, Under Siege,
Yeah.
that was at the battleship in Mobile.
Oh, I didn't know that. Man, they filmed
Yeah,
so much with that battleship and shit. It was
yeah.
like that, and then the shark movie with Nick Cage.
Oh yeah,
It
I
seems to
was.
just mainly be Nick Cage. There was that Stephen King movie that filmed there a couple years ago. It was a Netflix original movie,
Oh yeah, Gerald's Game.
Gerald's Game, which I'm in the final shot of that movie.
Oh yeah, I didn't care for that movie so much.
I liked it.
I
I
think.
actually enjoyed it. It's interesting being on set that day and kind of seeing how it all goes, and then like
Oh
seeing
yeah.
the final thing happen.
Oh, Get Out was also filmed in Fairhope.
Fairhope, yeah,
Yeah. So see, we have like all these productions right across the border. But here's the thing with like Alabama film production is that they only get incentives for Alabama residents working on the film.
well, that's kind of
So
good. That's awesome.
yeah, no, that's good for Alabamians.
Yeah.
That's bad for me living in
Oh,
Pensacola trying to get work on an Alabama film.
yeah. I guess that's true, but it would
Yeah,
be good if we had it here, and then
yeah,
they had to hire locals.
yeah, exactly. It's especially since film brings in a lot of outside money. I don't see what the you know what I mean, like where the controversy is.
Yeah,
But actually, kind of going back to the Nicolas Cage, that USS Indianapolis movie
yeah.
was the very first movie I was an extra on.
Oh, nice. I actually auditioned for a role in that movie,
Oh, yeah,
and
that was
it was weird. It was like I was working this job like 9 to 5. You have to request a day off like 2 weeks in advance, and if you're an actor, like you're just not going to be able to do anything.
yeah, no, because everything is last minute.
No, yeah, I submitted for one of the parts, and I got like an email asking like, "Can you be here tomorrow?" And I was like, "Well, no, tomorrow is a day that I have to work, unfortunately." And so they like cast somebody else for that part, but then allowed me to do a video audition for a part that I did not fit at all, which was very awkward audition.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of par for the course for a lot of movies, though. The casting is always super last minute.
Yeah.
My experience with that was I had never extred before because I was never really interested in being in front of the camera. And it was my day off. I was working on a few productions that summer, but it was my day off, and I knew the lady who was doing background casting, Brandy Goldman, and she posted on Facebook that she really needed, like, they needed a ton of sailors that night. And I texted her and I was like, okay, I'll help you out. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, it's my day off. It's like $100 or something like that. I'll come out. What's it gonna entail? Well, I found out that I'm not a very good extra because of my shoe size, which is 14. and so I spent half the time on set with wardrobe searching through because it's all like supposed to be historical clothes. So searching through like trying to find size 14 shoes, and then my body proportions are weird because I'm really tall and I'm really skinny. And so I ended up wearing like these really baggy clothes because nothing I wore could really fit me properly. And yeah, I knew at that point that probably being an extra in period pieces wasn't exactly my career choice. But I was like, okay, whatever. It's just one night. I think I actually ended up doing 2 nights, but I was never on set the second night. They told me they needed me back the next night. I was like, okay. But the first night, so this is my first time on like a feature movie set. I mean, before this, I'd been working commercials mainly, and so I never really had been on set with any big actors. And I remember seeing Nick Cage and being like, oh well, there's Nick Cage. I had actually seen him before. I was at the red carpet of The Croods, of all movies. But I was like, oh, that's cool. So they bring me onto the ship, and I'm standing around the ship for what seems like hours. It's so boring, And I think that's something that people who, want to try out being an extra or something, you're going to be doing a lot of nothing.
Yeah, that you bring a book.
Yeah, bring a book because you're going to be standing around or sitting in a holding area doing nothing. And so I was standing on the ship, and then the AD comes up to me, the second AD. He comes up to me and he says, "Do you know how to weld?" And I'm like, no. And he's like, "Do you want to learn?" And see, I was naive then, because for one, an extra shouldn't weld.
No,
That's like special effects. Like they were skirting some rules there.
an extra shouldn't weld, and an extra that has never welded before should definitely not be welding.
Yeah, exactly. But I was like, yeah, I was naive. I was like 19 or something. I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds like fun. And no, maybe I was 20. But anyways, so they bring me into this small room, and sitting right there is the man himself, Nicolas Cage. And I'm like, holy crap. And like, I better not mess this up. So they have like this board, like this special effects board. And they say, okay, so they gave me this metal rod, and they have me wear these vintage like welding goggles. And they're like, you're supposed to be like welding while the scene is going on. So they give me like a quick tutorial of how it goes. And I start to get a hold of it, like it's super bright. Nobody could look directly at it. I mean, I had to wear the goggles out of safety. And so I'm doing it, and maybe around like middle of take 6, like the director, Mario Van Peebles, is just like really, he's just doing so many takes of this thing. We're getting so much coverage. And in the middle of take 6, the welding stops working. And it just goes from the sparks to just metal scraping on metal, and it's absolutely terrible sounding. And one of the actors gets really pissed off at me. Yeah. And the AD comes running in, yelling at me, telling me I don't know what I'm doing and blah, blah, blah. I mean, he's the one who's really at fault, because he was having some kid like weld who didn't know how to do it, who isn't paid to do special effects. I mean, I'm paid as an extra. That's like totally... I'm sure that there's some rule out there that says he probably shouldn't do that. And I don't think it would have been that hard to put one of the special effects guys in a costume and then had him do the special effects himself. That would have probably been pretty easy. And but the AD starts yelling at me, telling me I don't know how I'm doing. That one of the actors is yelling at me. I remember Nick Cage telling the actor to calm down, that it wasn't my fault.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I really like you, man. And so we actually figure out that the reason it wasn't working is because somebody off the ship, so like literally maybe a half a mile of cable down the way, tripped over the line, and it got unplugged, so no electricity was coming into it.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it wasn't my fault, but it took like 30 to 40 minutes to get it fixed. And so that was my very first time as an extra, and the director felt bad for me, so he had me come to a Video Village and meet the producers.
Oh, nice.
And I thought that was pretty cool, but I was still kind of embarrassed. So this story does have kind of a a happy ending of sorts. Is that about a year later, I'm working a commercial here in Pensacola, and it's a WWE commercial for 5 Hour Energy. And I'm a PA on it, and I'm a PA all throughout like pre-production as well. And so the cinematographer, I'm to pick up the cinematographer at Pensacola Airport. And so I look on the call sheet and see who the cinematographer is, and the cinematographer is Andre Secula, who was the cinematographer for USS Indianapolis. And I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, oh lordy. So I pick him up from the airport, and he's a really, really nice guy. And I say, so have you been to Pensacola before? And he goes, no, I've never been to Pensacola. He's like this really short, like Polish guy, like old school kind of guy. And he's like, I've never been to Pensacola before, but I've shot some movies in Mobile. Is that how you say it? I'm like, no, it's Mobile. I said, you shot USS Indianapolis, didn't you? And he was like, yes. And it's like, oh, that was I was an extra on that. And he goes, oh, yes, what were you? And I was like, I was the guy who had to weld that thing and it stopped working. And he goes, oh, you were that guy. And then he goes, it was stupid. It was stupid decision by director anyway. I told him to cut the scene. His whole idea was dumb. I was like, okay, good. We're on good terms. But yeah, I know that's a bit of a tangent. I'm just sort of going storytelling time here, but yeah. So you've done extra stuff as well, and you learn a lot from just being on these big sets. Have you done extra or acted on any other of the movies around here?
No, not really. I did Gerald's Game, like I mentioned. I did NCIS New Orleans, which was in New Orleans, obviously.
Yeah.
Which was interesting, being on a TV set like that for the first time.
Yeah, they move a lot faster than feature films, from what
Yeah,
I've gathered.
and that one was like a 3 camera deal. So like they just
Oh yeah.
fly through shit. But even that was like a whole lot of hurry up and wait. I was there for 14 hours and maybe in a scene for like 40 minutes or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, which is great. You get paid the same amount. It's just you get to sit around for a long time, and they feed you really well.
Yeah, some productions feed you pretty well and some don't. But
Yeah, with that
the
one,
whole
NCIS fed like it was amazing
yeah,
catering that they got.
they have a huge catering budget.
But then I did this movie called Pure Country 3, where I was I'm doing the finger quotes thing, a skilled extra.
Yeah.
Where basically like I got picked because I could play an instrument. So they like send us this song that we have to learn. We're not really playing it. There weren't even amps on the stage, which I thought was hilarious. But like there, it was like, no, over there is the extras table. And the extras table is just like some bullshit like pasta that was thrown together. There's like a really nice table with awesome looking food that we're not allowed to touch, even though we're skilled extras.
Oh yeah. I always hate that. Sometimes I've heard some horror stories about like what extras were given food, and the worst horror stories I've heard were from that film Fist Fight with Charlie Day and is it Ice Cube?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of horror stories about the food and just the general on-set antics during that movie because, I mean, they were feeding like hundreds of people each day.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just something like, I know we're kind of getting close to an hour here, so, but, you know, you learn a lot about filming when you are an extra. It's almost like you're getting paid to kind of come on the set and spectate and see how things are done.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's nice.
and you learn how to act professionally.
The worst is like sometimes they'll have you do something like with you it was welding and you're just like this is not in my skill set. With me on Pure Country 3, it's like the singer comes out and she's like talking to me and she's like, all right, so I'm going to do this little like sway back and forth and I want you to like kind of sway with me. And I was just like, all right, because you don't say no. And
Yeah.
I don't, for a musician, I have terrible rhythm. Like I'm not a person that can dance at all. So even a sway is a bit much for me. Like I think even when I play in bands and stuff, I just like am emotionless and still on stage for the most part. I might tap my feet, but that's more to keep time than it is to look cool. So she's like, comes up to me on the first take and she's like, you know, trying to sway back and forth and I'm awkwardly trying to match it while also trying to pretend to play this song. And after the first take, she was like, do you not know how to sway? Have you never swayed before? And I was like, no. So she went to the other guitar player and like was like, you're going to sway with me. I was like, oh, there goes my close up.
Yeah, although I doubt that it'll, you know, that's something that I think some extras think way too much about is that they'll get a close up in the film.
Yeah, well,
Because
I still did. I got a close up of my hands on the guitar. That also made it in the credits, which was neat. And but the guy she went to that like actually could sway is like the one guy. They told us when we got there, they're like, we're gonna pick someone from the band that'll come back and be a featured extra tomorrow. It's like double pay, and you'll get 2 days instead of one. And they wound up picking that guy. I was like, damn it, I could have been in that. I could have got like a second day of pay if only I would have learned how to sway.
But I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is no Hollywood agent is really beating down your door.
No,
or
not at
beating
all.
down his door.
And it was I was like, people were asking me like, where am I going to be able to see this movie? And I'm like, I don't know. It'll probably be like straight to DVD Kmart exclusive.
Yeah.
And guess what it was?
Oh, well.
It was
Hey,
it was
anyone listening?
It was a straight to DVD Walmart exclusive.
Okay, that's a lot easier to find. So anyone listening, if you could go to Walmart and send us a copy, that'd be great.
That was kind of the weirdest one too, because for most of the extra stuff I've done before, they're just like, bring a couple outfits. This is kind of what we're looking for, and they just like pick stuff that I have, which is perfect because that actually fits me. But with this one, I brought stuff, and they were just like, no, we're going to put you in these jeans. And I'm a skinny person. Like skinny jeans to me are like normal jeans. Normal jeans are just Jinkos on me because I'm so tiny. So like they put me in these like normal pants that look huge on me, belt, like this really, really gaudy, like pop country star button-up shirt, one of those black ones that look like the afflicted dude took a shit on it pretty much, and like unbutton it down. I don't have chest hair or anything, so like, why are you unbuttoning my shirt down that far? And then like a cross necklace. And the only thing they picked from my stuff that I brought were my cowboy boots that I have from years ago, and a really ridiculous like snakeskin cowboy hat that somebody gave me that I brought for shits and giggles. And they're like, yeah, let's put him in this super ridiculous get up and then chastise him for not being able to fucking sway.
That sounds like a Walmart exclusive movie to me, if ever I heard one.
Yeah, it's Pure Country 3. Apparently the first one was like, oh man, I'm blanking on the country musician from the 90s that did it, but it was a pretty well-known movie. And then I didn't know that it was a trilogy, but I guess it is now.
I'm looking it up on IMDb. So, Pure Country. George Strait,
yeah. But this one I did get to be in a scene with Shawn Michaels, the wrestler, so that was kind of neat. I didn't know who he was, but...
Wait, is it called Pure Country, Pure Heart?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Willie Nelson's in it.
I know, I was so mad because we got to my scene where I'm a musician in a band, and the crew is like, yeah, Friday is what we're looking forward to. And I'm like, well, what's Friday? They're like, that's when we shoot Willie Nelson's scene. It's like, fuck, why couldn't I have been in that one? That would have been so good. Willie Nelson is awesome.
Yeah, and he just played in Biloxi.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's 85 and he's still playing.
Like one of the casinos?
Yeah, Hard Rock, I think.
True. Man, that would have been great.
You know, the thing about being an extra too is like, it's what I'm just trying to say for anyone listening is, if you want to be an extra, don't be one of those extras that really makes a big deal out of getting seen by the camera.
Oh my God, it's so annoying.
Because you annoy everybody. The last time I ever extraed was for Office Christmas Party. I was on that for 2 months, and I just told the AD, I was like, "Hey, man, like, I don't give a shit. Put me in the way back. I don't know. Like, you do your job and whatever." I actually had to audition for that extra role. That was a featured extra role.
Really?
And yeah, I had to do this weird dance audition where. Yeah, okay.
Well, you got it, so I guess at least you can sway.
Yeah, well, no, I got it because I couldn't, right? Because I was supposed to play as an IT guy. And So my crew, we got it because we were so awkward during the dance audition. But I don't know how you couldn't be awkward because the audition was like, we sent him pics of ourselves, right? And the director went through. I guess he selected like 120, or he selected like 120 people, and we all had to show up to the studio in Atlanta. And this was actually when I auditioned for this, was literally the day after I finished that job with Andre Sekula. So this was all within a week of me talking to Andre about how I was the welder, and then me auditioning for Office Christmas Party. So we all show up, and we all sit in like this huge like oval, and the director comes in, Will Speck. It was co-directed, but Will Speck was the one that was picking us and doing all that. So Will comes in, and we have no idea what's going to go on. Like, what kind of audition is this? Is this going to be one-on-one? Well, he gets like this, lady to come up, or he gets a couple ladies to come up, and they start dancing. And then he starts picking us out of the circle to come up and dance with him as he's watching us and making notes. So we're literally like, it's maybe like 5 people in the middle of a circle of like 120, all dancing for everyone else. Really?
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was so awkward. It was so awkward.
Yeah, I imagine dancing in any situation is awkward.
With like very, very low music. Yeah, like music that you can barely hear, and you're just there, and you're being watched by 100 other people. And so I was like, man, this is so strange. And then a couple weeks later, he said, okay, I've like brought it down from like 100 something to like the final like 40 something people, and we're all split into different departments in Xenotech, the company that the movie is about. So I was IT, and I'll go into the story of how I had a bit of a faux pas on set while dancing, bit of a public faux pas. I'm going to have some of the other people that were on that were extras with me do a podcast, but I'll definitely talk about it. And the faux pas included a pretty well-known celebrity. It's a little embarrassing, but it's really funny. It's kind of like a SpongeBob episode, like just ripped. It literally is a SpongeBob episode, but in real life. So I'll save that for another podcast.
Oh, so, what? No, I gotta hear it.
Well, no, I'm going to be doing that podcast next week. So, yeah. Right. So you'll have to wait.
God damn it.
But I want to get to just one last thing before we go, is that you are, as you said, you're a musician. So you're in some local bands, right?
Yeah.
So what are the bands? What are the bands' names?
The two main bands I'm in are Chainsaw Kelly, and the other one is Colonel Gentlaman and the Intangible Fancies. And then I just started playing bass in a band called Noiseheads.
So you just joined Noiseheads?
Yeah.
Okay, and they just came out with their album Sitcoms for Aliens.
Yeah, I played their CD release show.
Okay, nice. I didn't know you were with them.
Yeah, that was my first like show with them. We did like a 99 Rock like Battle of the Bands thing. That was like the first thing I did with them. But that was just like 3 songs. Also really weird. It's like the bass player from Creed and Alter Bridge was one of the judges. Just felt weird being judged by. I'll only be judged by Scott Stapp. Thank you very much. But yeah, I just started playing with them.
Yeah. Okay. And so, for anyone listening, Noiseheads is kind of like 90s kind of grunge style rock.
Yeah.
From what I get, yeah. And then Colonel Gentlaman and then Chainsaw Kelly, those are more folksy.
Yeah.
Kind, yeah. There's a lot of people in Colonel Gentlaman, right?
Yeah, we're a 5-piece band. Yeah, 2 guitars, bass, drums, and background vocals.
Okay, yeah, and you guys have done the Tiny Desk videos.
Yeah, we have Tiny Desk Contest. They just announced a new one, so we're trying to decide if we want to do that again this year.
Yeah, those always seem like a fun, but depending upon what the weather conditions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I know you did one that was in like the freezing cold.
Yeah, that was like the coldest day of that entire winter that we just showed. And of course, when you book something like that, it's sunny outside, so you're like, I know, we'll shoot it outside. And then you show up that day and it's like your fingers don't work because it's so fucking cold.
And the instruments are out of tune.
The instruments keep dropping out of tune.
Yeah.
But at least we had, Chris has cool neighbors, so they brought us biscuits and like coffee or hot chocolate or something delicious that we were all very grateful for.
Yeah, it's, I mean, anything artistic is a bit of a hustle. You have to sort of have many hands and many different pies.
Yeah.
All
the pies.
Well, yeah, all the pies. Every single one that you can get. Anyways, so is there anything you want to shout out? We've come to the end. I think it's a good time to sort of cap it off. So I'll let you shout anything out you want to. Anything you still haven't said about Scam County that you want to say, or about Could He Get a Job? Just anything like that.
Just check out the Kickstarter page. Check out the teaser we did with Max. I think y'all will enjoy it. After putting that together, I really feel like super confident in the show. Like if we can make the show as interesting as that teaser, I feel like we're going to be in a good place. So definitely check those out. This weekend, look out for the second teaser. And then, help us, fund us. If you don't have the money to fund, share it. Any little thing helps. And right now, most of our big goals have already been spoken for. So it's all smaller stuff and kind of nickel and diming to get us across the finish line. So the more people we have just helping and sharing, and $5 here and there, it'll go a long way.
And I will put a link in the description to the Kickstarter page.
Nice.
Daw, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.